Supplemental report. On June 17, 2015, at approximately 17:45 hours, I spoke with Sherry Mezer while I was at Yellow Cab, Springfield, Missouri. Sherry is a driver at Yellow Cab in Springfield. Sherry advised me she was certain she gave the male suspect in the Blanchard homicide a ride to Volunteer Way in Springfield. She said she had seen the photos of the male suspect on television and was certain it was the same person. Sherry provided a written statement, which is attached to this report. She stated she was dispatched to the Come and Go located at Fort and Battlefield in Springfield, Missouri, on June 14th, 2015, at 01:52 hours. She said she picked up one male, describing him as approximately 5'11" to 6 foot, having short dark hair. She stated the man wanted taken to 1105 West Volunteer Way, Springfield, Missouri. She said on the drive to that location, she and the male spoke a little bit. Sherry said the man told her he was from Wisconsin after she asked where he was from. She said he had a strong accent. While speaking with Sherry, she showed me a photo she had on her phone. The photo was taken of her timesheet for June 13th through June 14th. 2015. The timesheet showed she picked up a male at Come and Go, then dropped him off at 1105 West Volunteer Way. You guys notice anything wrong with that? Sherry said she thought it was odd that after she dropped the man off, because he approached the house and was looking into the windows. She added the house was dark inside. Sherry said the man never entered the house. While she was there, she saw him walk off the porch as she turned her vehicle around in the street. I returned to Yellow Cab on June 18th, 2015 and obtained some additional log sheets. One was from Sherry Mezer dated June 9th, 2015. Sherry's shift started the afternoon of June 9th and continued through the early morning hours of June 10th. Her log showed that at 01:57 hours, she picked up someone at Days Inn North and took them to 2103 West Volunteer, arriving at 2:06 hours. I obtained a call slip provided by Yellow Cab, which showed on June 10th, 2015, someone called their dispatch at 01:45 hours and wanted to be picked up at 3114 North Kentwood, room 227. This is the address for Days Inn. I was able to make phone contact with Sherry on July 9th, 2015. I told her about the time I obtained for June 9th through June 10th. She said she did not remember it, but asked if I would text her a photo of the timesheet. I told Sherry if she did not remember that particular pickup and drop off, it was all right. She said she had a photo of the timesheet because she always photographs them. Sherry explains that her photo of the particular timesheet was partially covered with something that she could not see it. I text her a copy of the timesheet to help refresh her memory. Sherry said she could not be certain, but thought she remembered picking up the mail. She said only thing she can remember about him was he had a dark backpack. She said the man walked to the right side of the house instead of the front after she dropped him off. Sherry said she could not remember anything else. I asked her if it was possible that she was getting some of the details from her picking up and dropping off on June 14th, 2015, mixed up with the June 10th, 2015 pickup and drop off. Sherry said that it was possible because on June 14th, they had already left Springfield, Missouri. And we know now that the crime, happened on June 10th, technically. Now, this is Greene County Sheriff's Office detailed photo video supplement. It says all the photos And the description, one starts with Gypsy in Wisconsin, interview room, close-up of Gypsy's face, close-up of Gypsy's neck and left side, close-up of Gypsy's neck right side, Gypsy's shirt with possible blood, Gypsy's arm and hands, Gypsy's right shoulder and shirt, Gypsy's right arm with bite mark, close-up of Gypsy's top of hands, close-up of Gypsy's palms of both hands, Gypsy's knees, close-up of Gypsy's knees, Nicholas Godejohn, tops of Nicholas's hands, Nicholas's palms, close-up of Nicholas's face, Nicholas's feet, Nicholas's right finger with injury, close-up of Nicholas's right finger with injury, Nicholas without his shirt, front side, without his shirt, back side, Nicholas back with small scrape, Nicholas's back with a very large scrape. Then there's this supplemental report. This was July 15th, 2015. On Tuesday, June 16th of 2015, I called Yellow Cab in Springfield, Missouri, and spoke with Sherry Perkins. I advised I needed to speak with someone with the business that was the custodian of records. Sherry advised she was the person I needed to speak with. I advised Sherry I had a subpoena for cab driver records with a beginning date of June 9th, 2015 and an ending date of June 15th, 2015. She advised she would gather the records and bring them to the sheriff's office as soon as possible. During the early afternoon hours of June 16th, 2015, Sherry arrived with the documents. There were 19 pages. All of the documents were copies, not originals. I seized the documents and served Sherry with the subpoena. Detective Intel Analyst Devon Tidwell notarized the business records affidavit in my presence when Sherry provided the documents. The original notarized document was later placed in evidence, and a copy is attached to the report. Sherry advised if I needed further assistance that she was willing to help and did not require a subpoena for future records in this case. Excuse me. And the next few pages are redacted. I'm assuming these are all the things that would be attached to it. Supplemental report. This is also June 1st, like the first one, 2015. On June 16th, 2015, I received the logs for the drivers of Yellow Cab, Springfield, Missouri. I called Yellow Cab and requested the logs earlier that day for the time period of June 9th, 2015 through June 15th, 2015. I had a subpoena for the records, which I served to Sherry Perkins, custodian of records, when she arrived at the sheriff's office to provide the records. While looking at the logs, I saw one for cab number 25. The name John was written on it. The date on the log was June 10th, 2015. According to the log, the cab made a pickup at 2103 West Volunteer Way at 5:48 hours. Then went to Days End North, arriving at 5:55 hours. So if the crime happened around 2:15, 2:20-ish a.m., all conspiracy aside, just from what we know from actual reports. If it happened between 2:30 a.m. on June 10th, 2015, and they didn't actually get picked up until 5:48 a.m. That's over 3 hours in that house. That's a long time. That is a long time. Yeah, especially knowing that this was orchestrated and this was planned. You would think that she would have had all her stuff ready to go, like want to get out of there. But no, they were doing something for 3 hours. Whole lot of cleaning and bumping uglies, I would assume. At 17:06 hours, I went to Yellow Cab and contacted John. He was identified as John W. Harmon. Date of birth. Okay, we're going to scroll through this. John provided a written statement. A copy of his statement is attached to this report. According to the written statement written by John, he said he was working during the early morning hours of June 10th, 2015. At 5:48 hours, he picked up a male and female, excuse me, at 2103 West Volunteer Way, Springfield, Missouri. He said he dropped the couple off at Days End, North Kentwood, Springfield, Missouri. John said that the female was wearing a black skirt, a white striped shirt, and a black wig. He added the male was wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt. John said that the couple acted normal to him. He said after he saw the mugshots, he was 100% sure that they were the same couple he gave a ride to on the morning of June 10th, 2015. I recorded my interview with John on my digital recorder. I later downloaded the recording onto the server. Additionally, I recorded the recording onto a disc and placed it in evidence. John told me the same thing he had written in his statement. He stated that the couple acted normal. He said lots of people have asked him if the female was in a wheelchair, but he said she was not, and she walked just fine, adding that she was carrying her own bags. John said the female was wearing a beehive-style wig. John advised me, like, what, Amy Winehouse-style beehive? Like, what? John advised me that they did not see blood or similar substances on either male or female. He said after they arrived at Days Inn, the female paid for the cab fare with a $20 bill, adding that the charge was $8.70. John said that the couple was quiet, but spoke quietly to each other. I asked if the female looked young to him, and he stated he thought so, but was not sure due to the way she was dressed. John added that he thought the female may have been a prostitute due to the way that she was dressed while wearing a wig. John said he later found out about the homicide on Monday morning, June 15th, 2015, when his boss called him and asked if he picked up a girl on Volunteer Way on June 10th, 2015. He said he told his boss he did, but when she asked if the girl was in a wheelchair, he advised her the female was walking and not in a wheelchair. John said he did not have any additional information, but suggested I speak with Janice Buttram, however you say that, because she would be able to provide more details about the couple from the day she gave them a cab ride. I clarified with John that the couple he was referring to were the suspects in the Blanchard homicide. He was not familiar with the suspects' names, but advised the couple that he had seen mugshots of them on television connected to the homicide on Volunteer Way was the same couple that he gave a ride to on the morning of June 10th, 2015. Okay. Supplemental report. Again, July 1st, 2015. Written statement of Janice Buttram, yellow cab driver. On June 16th, 2015, I received the logs for the drivers of yellow cab. I think this is the same thing I called yellow cab and requested the logs earlier the day for the time period. Same thing. I had a subpoena for the records, which I served. Okay, now that's all saying the same exact thing as the other one. On June 17th, 2015, at 17:06 hours, I went to Yellow Cab and interviewed drivers John Harmon and Sherry Mezer. While there, I picked up a written statement that Janice Buttram had completed earlier in the day. Let's see. I was not expecting to receive any information from Janice because she had been to the sheriff's office earlier in the week and spoke with Detective Joseph Fletcher. Please refer to Detective Fletcher's report regarding his interview with Janice. After returning to my office, I looked at Yellow Cab log sheet with Janice's name on it. The log was dated June 11th, 2015. No times were listed on the log, but there were numbers 1 through 12 where the time is supposed to be written. Address of pickup and address of destination were listed. The pickup address beside number 12 said Greyhound, and the destination was written as Days Inn. Janice's written statement said that on June 11th, 2015, she picked them up, meaning more than one person, plural, them, up at Greyhound earlier in the afternoon, and she dropped them off at Days Inn. She said she spoke with the couple for 10 to 15 minutes. Janice said that the female told her name was Gypsy Rose. Janice remarked that there was a movie named Gypsy, and Gypsy Rose told her that was her namesake, and it was her mother's favorite movie. Janice said she did not know what to think when Gypsy Rose told her that she was made to be like that little girl. Janice said the male did not speak very much and seemed nervous. knowing that he's autistic, I mean, that could be why. A lot of the self-soothing type of, movements and maneuvers might seem nervous to somebody else. She said he told her he was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. Gypsy Rose told Janice she was 14 years old and was traveling with her brother. Janice said Gypsy Rose acted very young and talked childish. Janice added the girl was wearing an old black wig and was covered with clothing that was too hot for the afternoon heat. So she told her she was 14 years old and was traveling with her brother. They definitely knew what they were doing. She definitely knew what she was doing. Janice stated the male told her he was Gypsy Rose's brother and that they were trying to get on the same bus back home. He said he could not let her on his bus, so they were going to return to Days Inn and wait for a different bus. Janice said the couple told her that they had been staying at Days Inn since the day before. Janice said the couple did not appear to be brother and sister because they were touching each other too much. You're not that kind of brother and sister. Okay, this is not the Habsburgs. She said the female paid the cab fare and had a large stack rolled up. Janice said after the couple got out of the cab, ran to their room, written as Janice wrote it. Well, that's funny. If you're 14, why would you have a big old fat stack of money rolled up? Rubber bands in your pockets. Why you got that if you're 14 years old? Why doesn't the older brother have that? Weird. Janice said, okay, I already read that part. I did not call Janice to re-interview her since she had already spoken with Detective Fletcher. A copy of Janice's statement was placed with this report, and the original was placed as evidence. And I'm assuming that's what these redactions probably are. July 15th, 2015. On June 18th, 2015, at approximately 23 hours, I called Tate A. Petrie, Golden Meadow, Louisiana. Gonna blot that out. I called Tate to ask him some questions about his sister Claudinia Blanchard and her daughter Gypsy Rose. Tate told me that he did not spend much time around Claudinia or Gypsy because he was away working. He stated he has always been a pipeline welder and has spent extended periods of time in places such as Brazil, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. Tate said he always remembers Gypsy being in a wheelchair and does not recall seeing her out of a wheelchair. He said he has not seen or spoke to Claudinia or Gypsy in 15 to 16 years when Claudinia left and never contacted their family again. He said that he had no idea where they moved after leaving the town that they grew up in. Tate said he thought his sisters, Claudinia and Dorla, may have spoken with Claudinia in recent years. It should be noted, Claudia and yeah, okay, that's weird because her grandfather, his name is Claude. And there is a Claude Jr., there is a Claudia and Claudinia. So 3 of his kids are named after this. And I don't know if everybody else knows this, but there was actually 7 siblings because they did have a brother who was born and passed away sometime and is also buried down there. It doesn't say exactly if he was same day or if it was like a SIDS type of situation. So Dee Dee did have another brother, and you can find it in his information on Find a Grave too. It should be noted, I recorded my interview of Tate with my digital recorder. However, there was a malfunction and only my voice can be heard. The recording was placed on a CD and placed in evidence. July 22nd, 2015. On June 18th, 2015, at approximately 19:30 hours, I called Evans J. Petrie, who resides at Golden Meadow, Louisiana. On June 18th, 2015, at approximately 19:30 hours, I called Evans J. Petrie, who resides at Golden Meadow, Louisiana. His phone number, don't even need all that. Evans is one of Claudinia Blanchard's brothers. Evans explained that he and his brothers and sisters do not call each other by their given names. Each of them has a nickname, and Claudinia's is Dee Dee. He said he has always been treated different from the rest of the siblings because she has always been treated differently from the rest of the siblings because she was their mother's favorite and was the baby of the family. Evans stated that Claudinia was sent to college and was given a huge wedding when she married Rod. He told me before their mother passed away, he asked her what she wanted for Christmas, and she told him to buy something for the baby instead of buying her a gift. Evans said the mother was referring to Claudinia as the baby, yet Claudinia was an adult when this incident took place. Evans told of another incident one Christmas in which he went to his parents' house, and Claudinia began showing him her new clothes and shoes worth hundreds of dollars. Claudinia told him their mother bought the items for her. Evans said she asked their mother what she bought him, and she picked up a packet of M&Ms off the table, handed it to him, and told him he could have them. Evans said after their mother passed away, Claudinia took out credit cards in their mother's name and maxed all of them out. He said that the dollar amount was into the thousands, and it took their father a long time to get it all sorted out because the credit card companies were trying to make him pay for the bills. Evans said he knew Gypsy could walk before she and her mother moved away, and Claudinia was the one making Gypsy stay in the wheelchair. He said he always believed Claudinia and government-funded doctors scammed the system because there was nothing wrong with Gypsy. He said Gypsy could see just fine and did not need glasses when she was little. But one of this is subjective, not objective, because he probably didn't know that she had strabismus, and that would require surgical intervention, or she would have ended up blind. So, like I said, hindsight's 2020. You only know what you know when you know it. You can't go back years and say, oh yeah, she really does require this. He said he always believed Claudinia and government-funded doctors scammed the system because there was nothing wrong with Gypsy. He said Gypsy could see just fine and did not need glasses when she was little. But one day, Claudinia had prescribed glasses. Like she's a doctor. Like she was just like, yep, I'm a doctor. I'm going to prescribe the glasses on Gypsy. They do have reading glasses and things too that you can get also. And magnifiers, you can get those at dollar stores today. On Gypsy, he could only describe as fly glasses. The fly. Evans said the glasses looked similar to the eyes of a fly, like bifocals. He said he could not believe Claudinia talked a doctor into prescribing the glasses to Gypsy. Evans said he never knew the names of any of Gypsy's doctors or what hospital she went to, because Claudinia did not want the family to know that information. Evans said he had no idea where Claudinia and Gypsy moved after they left Louisiana. He said he thought his sisters Claudia and Dorla had been in contact with her on Facebook. I recorded my interview with Evans on a digital recorder. However, it malfunctioned. It only captured my voice. I placed the recording onto a CD and entered it into evidence. How convenient. And it happened also with Tate. If he knew it malfunctioned, why didn't he fix it? I don't know. This is kind of suspicious. Like, not at all checking. This is also July 22nd, 2015. On June 18th, 2015. Okay, I called Tiffany Tauvin, who resides at Martinville, Louisiana. Tiffany said she remembered her Aunt Claudinia, adding the last time she saw her or Gypsy was approximately 15 years ago. Tiffany said she remembered she once spent the night with Claudinia when she was 12 or 13 years old. She said she did not know why, but something about Claudinia creeped her out. She said whatever it was, it bothered her so bad, she wanted to leave and go home. Tiffany said she never spent the night with Claudinia again. She stated that there was one thing she remembered about Gypsy, is that her hair was always very short. She said Claudinia always had Gypsy's hair cut short like a boy would have. Tiffany said she had heard stories about Claudinia that family members would discuss, but she did not have a lot of information firsthand. So she doesn't remember a whole lot of stuff, but she remembers once spending the night so much to being creeped out and never wanting to spend the night again. But then she doesn't remember much. She just has information that she's hearing. So it's always a possibility that a lot of the information that she remembers and things that she's hearing from other family members, especially after the crime, after they learned about the crime, all of a sudden now it's all of these stories and things that could be affecting, things that she remembered versus had they been interviewed or talked to beforehand, So, of course, she doesn't remember much at all, but she remembers being so creeped out at 12 to 13. I remember being 12 to 13. I have memories from 3. So that's, I don't know, it's just kind of conflicting. Tiffany said not long ago, Claudinia found her on Facebook and sent her a friend request. She said Claudinia had never provided a phone number or address which would allow family members to contact her. I recorded my phone interview with Tiffany with a digital recorder. However, it malfunctioned. It only recorded my part of the conversation. It didn't capture their voice. The recording was put on a CD and placed in evidence. Too bad that my thing keeps just malfunctioning and I am not checking it between all of this to make sure that it's appropriately working. Okay. Phone interview with Claudia Olivier. On June 17th, 2015, at approximately 15:51 hours, I called Claudinia Ann Olivier, who resides in Martinville, Louisiana. Claudia described Claudinia as a mama's baby who ate when their mother ate, took a nap when their mother did, etc. She said Claudinia and their mother did everything together, and she was also their mother's favorite child. Claudia said Claudinia was always different than the rest of their siblings. She explained Claudinia held grudges against people, and their family was loving, forgiving, and enjoyed spending time together outside with each other. She said Claudinia always went back inside and said she did not want to sweat. Claudia said she did not know why her sister was misspelling her name by putting extra letters in it. And she did not do that when she was living in Louisiana. Is there an extra D and an extra N in the Claudinia? Because I always thought that was really strange too, that there's an extra D and an extra N. Like, how you don't need all that. Claudia said that after Claudinia had Gypsy, it seemed like something new was wrong with Gypsy all the time. But there was. She really was born with sleep apnea. Their father, Claude, had testified to that in the prison confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, which was filmed for almost 2 years before she was released on December 28th of 2023, but it aired a week later on June 5th of 2024. I remember because I've been here since way before that. But okay, so let's get to it. Claudia said after she had Gypsy, it seemed like there was something wrong with Gypsy all the time. They might not have known about the chromosome disorder, although I think they definitely had an idea something genetically was going on because they could tell just by looking at her. She had microcephaly. Her head was smaller than it should be. Circumference. She was very small. She was also born premature. She had very clear strabismus. She had sleep apnea. Even their father testifies to that being true. And I think that's why Gypsy wanted to really throw him under the bus. And I'm not saying anything is true or is not true, but because he's the one eyewitness that can testify to the fact that from the time she was born, she wasn't perfectly healthy, that she really did have this sleep apnea, that she had this machine on her, as her grandfather says, and that would go off when she would stop breathing in the middle of the night as a newborn, as an infant, and that her mother would have to go in there because the alarm would go off all the time. Her grandfather says that. So there has to be some truth to that, because after Rod had left her, she moved back home and then had Gypsy and was living at home. So it makes sense that her father would know that. And of course, the genetic disease, the rare chromosome disease that she has wouldn't be found out until 2008. She's not diagnosed with until I think 2013, if I'm correct on that. So, but that doesn't mean that her mother or doctors couldn't look at her and just tell by her features, by the circumference of her head, by her small stature, by these other ailments that she had, the strabismus, the failure to thrive, that there was something genetically going on, but they just couldn't pinpoint what. So, because of this, Claudinia called her from a payphone at Ronald McDonald House in New Orleans, saying that Gypsy had another surgery. Claudia said when Gypsy was young, Claudinia was in a bad car accident and had to live with their father and stepmother for a while. She said, although Gypsy had a feeding tube, she ate regular food when her mother was not around. Claudia said Gypsy also got out of her wheelchair and ran around when her mother was not looking. She also admits to walking and knowing to walk. Even Ken has said on the live that she was walking behind closed doors, and we know that that's true, because if she was in a wheelchair for 15 years and never got up, I mean, it only takes 24 hours for your muscles to atrophy. And the fact that she had lack of any muscle atrophy tells us she was walking behind closed doors. And of course, she's not going to ever admit it, even though her medical records and everything prove that she was walking. Even her family says it here, that she was walking. Now, if they weren't with them behind closed doors when they were alone, there's only two people that would know that. But the fact that her legs never atrophied tells us that she was using it, because muscles are like that. You don't use it, you lose it. So after this, she said, although Gypsy had the feeding tube, she was eating regular food when her mother was not around. Claudia said Gypsy got out of her wheelchair, ran around when her mother was not looking. She said after their father, Claude Sr., and their oldest brother, Claude Jr., confronted Claudinia and had told her to stop acting like Gypsy could not walk, she left and did not keep in contact with the family. Claudinia later obtained credit cards in their father and oldest brother's names, which burned her bridges with them. Claudia said during or near 2002, she and her sister Dorla met Claudinia and Gypsy at a motel in Mississippi to visit. She said when Claudinia was not present, Gypsy was laughing and jumping on the bed, but stopped suddenly when her mother entered the room. Claudia indicated Gypsy seemed to be afraid of her mother, but she had never seen Claudinia be mean to Gypsy. Instead, Claudinia doted on Gypsy and spent almost every moment with her. She said Claudinia claimed she homeschooled Gypsy using the name Angel Heart Academy as the homeschool name. Claudia said there was never such a thing as Angel Heart Academy and that Claudinia had made it up. Claudia said after Hurricane Katrina hit, she called the Red Cross and other agencies to see where her sister and Gypsy were, because that was the last location they lived in. She said she was told no one kept records of where people went. Really? Like one of the worst natural disasters that the United States of America had. Over 300 million citizens at that time. They didn't keep no records of where people were coming, where they were going, where they were sending them to. Nothing. I mean, we know that Louisiana had been devastated by Hurricane Katrina. But you know what wasn't? A lot of other states. They certainly could have kept records of where people were going. She said she told no one had kept records of where people went, that people were put on buses and just shipped out. Claudia said she had no idea where Claudinia and Gypsy were after the hurricane, and Claudinia did not contact any of them. Claudia said she and their sister Dorla were on a cruise in 2010. She said they saw a man on the ship and recognized him as Rod Blanchard. Was he the captain? Or was he there on a pleasure? Watch, he was there with the cookie lady. Could you imagine? Could you imagine saving up and finally going on like the dream cruise that you've always wanted to go on, and you see your ex-brother-in-law there? Like, no. Let me have this vacation far away from everybody that I know. Ugh. Claudinia's ex-husband. They all visited a while, and Claudia said she learned Rod was still in contact with Claudinia and Gypsy. Claudia said she and her sister Dorla were on a cruise in 2010. This is 5 years before the crime. She said, so she would have been around 19, right? She said they saw a man on the ship and recognized him as Rod Blanchard, Claudinia's ex-husband. They all visited a while, and Claudia said she learned Rod was still in contact with Claudinia and Gypsy. Claudia said after that, Claudinia contacted her. She said they spoke with each other via private Facebook messages and occasionally by phone. The phone number she had for Claudinia was this number. She said the most recent Facebook profile she and Claudinia messaged each other on was, quote, SNO, Snow, Gypsy, Blanchard with an E, unquote. Claudia stated she had never seen Claudinia in Gypsy's house until they saw it on the media coverage after her sister's death. Claudia said she did not know about the GoFundMe accounts Claudinia had for Gypsy. She said she knew that they had been to Disney in 2010 and at least one other time. I asked Claudia if she knew of anyone besides her brothers and sister that could give me information about Claudinia and Gypsy. She said her daughter, Tiffany Tovin, however you would pronounce that, may remember some things. She provided Tiffany's phone number. I later called her. That information is documented on a different supplemental report. Let me guess. I recorded my interview with Claudia on a digital recorder. However, it malfunctioned and only my voice was recorded. I later put that recording on a CD and entered it into evidence. Yeah, see, I already know how this goes. Oh, Jesus. Okay, this is long. Again, this is July 23rd. A different date. I had to go down there just to see if it wasn't still the 22nd to make sure that he fixed this malfunctioned recorder issue, whatever. Okay, on June 17th, 2015, approximately these hours, I called Claude Anthony Petrie Jr. And it says that this is Claudinia Blanchard's oldest brother. Claude said he has not seen or spoken with Claudinia or Gypsy for approximately 16 years. He said he confronted Claudinia about her treatment of Gypsy, and it made her mad. He said she moved away and did not maintain contact with her family since then. Claude said Claudinia wanted to keep Gypsy a baby and not allow her to grow up. He said he told Claudinia she needed to let Gypsy go to school instead of making her stay home. Claude also said he told Claudinia to stop making Gypsy stay in a wheelchair because everyone in the family knew she could walk. Claude said he told Claudinia to stop acting like Gypsy could not eat regular food because everyone knew she actually could eat because they have seen her eat when her mother was not around. Claude said he saw Gypsy running and playing with other kids in the family when she was younger, even though Claudinia made her stay in a wheelchair. He said that Gypsy only got out of the wheelchair when her mother was not looking. Claude recalled one incident in which Gypsy was jumping on the trampoline with other kids, but when Claudinia saw her, Gypsy immediately fell down and crawled to her wheelchair. Claude stated Claudinia was a liar and always claiming something different was wrong with Gypsy. He said she was supposed to have seen Gypsy's godfather, but Claudinia claimed Gypsy was dying right after her birth, so Claudinia had her baptized without him present. Oh, he was supposed to have been Gypsy's godfather. I'm sorry, I must have read that wrong. He said he was offshore working and Claudinia would not wait 7 days for him to return before baptizing Gypsy. Yeah. Claude explained that no one in the family ever knew who Gypsy's doctors were, what hospitals she went to, or any other medical facilities. He said the only information they had about Gypsy's reported illnesses was the claims made by Claudinia. He said Claudinia did not want anyone in the family to know anything about Gypsy's doctors or medical facilities. Claude described Claudinia as a woman who was greedy and often told lies. He said she was always different than the rest of their siblings. He said their family is very close and gets together often for cookouts and pool parties. Claude said he visited Claudinia, wished Claudinia was there, but she is the one who made the choice to not be a part of the family anymore. Claude said Claudinia was always a mama's baby and received special treatment from their mother. He said Claudinia lived with their parents, but after their mother died, Claudinia refused to move out of the house, even though he had bought it. Claude said he paid each of his siblings for their share of the house, and he gave Claudinia $14,000 for her share. He said she moved away not long afterward. Claude said he believed Gypsy was not happy with her life. He said he heard that Gypsy ran away 2 years ago. He said he understood Gypsy wanting to get away from her mother, but she did not have to go about it by killing Claudinia. And there is the paradox of this family. They're like saying all these horrible things about their sister, but that's just it. At the very end of it, it doesn't give her the right to take her life. Even if she was a liar, even if she exaggerated, even if she was poor and not employed and had this child who really did have a chromosome disorder that comes with an array of different issues and different medical issues. No matter what, but he still says at the very end she did not have to go about it by killing his sister Claudinia, right? I think that's the same sentiment a lot of people share in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case. Now, here's the thing. He said he believes that Gypsy was not happy with her life. And what did you do? Okay? What did you do? Out of 7 siblings, 1 died as an infant. There was 6 left. 3 boys, 3 girls. If the siblings know this, why did they not do anything? And keep doing something for their niece. And the fact that he says that he had heard Gypsy ran away 2 years ago. He said he understood Gypsy wanting to get away from her mother, but she did not have to go about it by killing Claudinia. Why didn't, if you knew that she ran away and she was somehow brought back, and that's one thing that a lot of people, Gypsy supporters, Gypsy's friends, they make a point of this. If you're 24 years old and your mother is not letting you date, is that or is that not abusive? Because at 24 years old, you should be allowed to date. But a lot of people say, well, if you're 24 years old and you have all these medical conditions and you don't have the maturity to date, or it's the safety issue of dating somebody from online who you have no idea who they are, and the first and only time you met them was in a dark movie theater, and it was only for sexual purposes. You know, how you don't know that person at all. You don't know them like that. So that right there is my biggest thing, because that is a great point. But in the same breath, if you're 24 years old and you're still living with your mom or your parents, they kind of get a say over who you bring to their house or what you are or are not going to do while you're living in their house, especially when you're not paying bills, and with the safety issue of talking to people online, talking to them on dating websites. You're talking to older men. We know that she had admitted to Nicholas Godejohn that she had talked to over 6 different men between the ages of 35 and almost 60, that she would send them topless photos, other videos, and inappropriate sexual content, and that she got an enjoyment out of taunting and teasing and, like, you know, having this sexual nature about her or whatnot. You know, yeah, some people could say, oh, well, that's abusive to not let your 24-year-old because of 20. Well, that's the whole thing. She also was free to get up and walk out and not come back. She was free to do that. She was free to do that. Instead, she tried to take her mother's life in 2011, tried again on June 14th of 2011 with the BB gun incident and the dagger. Then, of course, she orchestrates the entire crime. So when her supporters and her friends or her family say, that, oh no, her and Nick only started talking about it a year before the crime happened, then explain how she tried to take her mother's life twice in 2011. In spring of 2011 and again in the summer of 2011, but she doesn't meet Nicholas on Christian for free dating website until October of 2012. That's a whole year and a year and a half before she ever even meets Nick. So, there's that part. The whole thing with that, though, is that they had been talking for almost, because the crime happened in June. So July, August, September, October. It was like 4 months shy of being exactly 3 years that her and Nicholas had been talking with each other. This definitely was something that was on her mind. But see, she had every ability to get up and go to the police or get up and contact somebody, get up and contact any of her aunts or her uncles, but she didn't do that. But also, there is a level, I think, of responsibility or culpability there because every adult has that responsibility. If you know that your niece is technically 19 and she's unhappy and she's trying to run away at 19, why aren't you calling your sister? Why aren't you calling social services or even calling her father or trying to get, a hold of somebody to at least report it, to constantly, check up on that to see why, why is this happening? Why is my niece trying to run away? And if, her mother is her caregiver and she's labeled as cognitively impaired or mentally disabled, then there's a whole nother level to that. But other people have showed her, paperwork that proves she's an adult, and for medical reasons why she would sign off on this for her mother, because that's the only person she had as far as family or legally speaking. And it makes sense. It makes sense that after turning 18 you would want to have an emergency contact or have somebody that can make those decisions for you in the event that something happens. But all of her medical procedures from that point on, she was the one who was consenting for all of that by law. So this is the last one I'm going to cover for right now. Third, phone contact with Laura and Claude Petrie. I want to know what was the first and the second. I would have loved to have been a little fly up on that wall to hear not the third, but the first and the second phone contact with Laura and Claude Petrie. Now, this again is still July 23rd, 2015. On June 17th, 2015, approximately 10 hours, I called the residence of Claude and Laura Petrie, Claudinia Blanchard's father and stepmother. Laura answered the phone and I spoke with her. This one's a little bit long too. Okay. I advised Laura that Gypsy had been located and was arrested in connection with Claudinia's homicide. I confirmed with Laura that Gypsy's actual birth date is July 27th of 1991. Laura stated Gypsy's birth name is Gypsy Rose Elcida Petrie Blanchard. Gypsy Rose Elcida Petrie Blanchard. Laura told me that Gypsy was healthy, but in 1998, Gypsy was on a motorcycle with her grandfather, Claude. He dropped the motorcycle and Gypsy got a scrape on her leg. Laura said it was not an injury which would require anyone to go to the hospital, but Claudinia took Gypsy to the emergency room at Lady of the Sea Hospital in Galliano, Louisiana. She said from that day on, Claudinia made Gypsy stay in a wheelchair and would not let her walk. Laura, see, this is also another thing. How could they say from that time forward that she did this in front of her mother and not around her mother? But then you guys haven't seen her for 16 years. How can you say what she does and does not do 365 days a year for 16 years that you haven't seen her? And that's not even including a leap year. That's approximately 5,840 days that you haven't been in their life, that you haven't seen them, you haven't talked to them, you don't know what in the hell she's doing behind closed doors and what she's not doing behind closed doors, because we know that her muscles did not atrophy, so we know she had to have been walking. That is just a fact. And with her mother's cancer and the issues with her diabetes, therefore her weight, because she didn't have weight issues when she was younger. So I'm going to assume that her diabetes and her cancer were linked with her weight issues, all the other health issues that she had. It makes sense that as she got older, she wasn't able to do as much. But that also tells you that if she wasn't gone and leaving Gypsy alone with anybody else during the almost 10 years they were in Springfield, Missouri, that Gypsy couldn't have been walking around inside. But that tells us that she was. She was, in fact. She was participating. She was helping her mom steal. She was helping her mom lie. Why? Because her mom taught her to be a good liar. One without any conscience. Now, reading this in particular, she's talking about this as if it's just in this incident. This is before Hurricane Katrina, before they move. But it's also funny that other people are saying the same things about eating, about the wheelchair, and then also saying in the same breath that they haven't seen them in 15 to 16 years. They haven't talked to her in 15 to 16 years, meaning that they didn't talk to her for at least 5 to 6 years that she was still living in Louisiana, and the 9, almost 10 years that they were living in Springfield, Missouri. So there's that. They can't know what she was and was not doing just because they're family if they hadn't seen her in this long. But Laura gives a little bit more detailed information. Now she says that Gypsy was able to walk, but Claudinia would not allow her to walk and do things that the other kids were. What kind of father and stepmother sits by and allows their daughter and stepdaughter to do that to their kid? Just a question. Just a question. You guys didn't think to contact family services, a doctor, her own father? Oh, that's right, because her own father and stepmother knew the same exact thing, right? They knew that she could walk and that she was just in the wheelchair for what? Shits and giggles? But they all neglected her the same exact way that they all want to say that Claudinia was abusing her. Abuse and neglect are one and the same. So, for all the people that want to sit here and put all of this on Claudinia, it's like they're projecting because they're trying to deflect away from their neglect. Their neglect to do anything, right? And it says right here that Laura said she believed Gypsy was afraid of her mother, but she said they were not, adding no one in the family knew what to do about Claudinia's treatment of Gypsy, and it never crossed their minds that there was anyone to call and report what was going on. Really? Really? Not even law enforcement? Really? Not even law enforcement. You didn't know who to report it to. That's crazy to me. What? Laura said Claudinia kept telling everyone there were more and more things wrong with Gypsy, but nothing was wrong with her. Okay, if Laura was Gypsy's medical doctor and knew there was nothing wrong with her, then why didn't she call and report it to police? Why didn't she call and report it to CPS? Why didn't she even call the police to say, hey, we don't know who to report this to, but this is really odd, and this is not okay to make a child sit in a wheelchair when she doesn't need it. And we know she doesn't need it. Why didn't her own father do that? Because he's more concerned on where he's sticking his pogo stick than the actual offspring he created. That's why. He had a whole brand new family. Who cares about, the one he started and the other one he started and all of that, right? Couldn't even be bothered to make a phone call. That's the sad part. Laura told me that Claudinia did not take her mother's death very well. She said Claudinia printed off a life-size photo of her mother's face and attached it to a dummy she carried around in the back seat of her vehicle. Is anybody buying this? It's like those weird stickers of Queen Elizabeth sitting in the back seat of a car. Like, is anybody really doing this to a dummy? Come on, are you serious? She actually got an actual mannequin or something and just printed out a picture of her mom's giant face. I'm thinking this is where Gypsy got the whole, she printed out a picture of me and Dan and put it with the cow's tongue out back. Yet nobody ever dug that up. I'm sure the mother and daughter duo that live in the house now, I'm almost positive that somebody told them about that 2 years ago when that came out. Let's see. Okay, that she attached it to a dummy. She carried it around in the backseat of her vehicle. Laura said that when Gypsy would get tired, Claudinia told her to lay her head on Grandma and take a nap. Laura said Claudinia's behavior is really strange. How come out of all of the strange made-up crap in that freaking book of hers and that TV show, she ain't mentioned the part where her mama was so devastated by her own mother's death that she printed off a giant-ass picture of Emma's face and put it on a dummy and would tell her to lay down and take a nap with dummy Grandma. What? Oh my goodness. I asked Laura if Claudinia and Gypsy were victims of Hurricane Katrina. She said she did not know because they did not know where they moved to after they moved out of her and Claude's house. Laura said that she thought Claudinia and Gypsy moved out of the house in 1999. Claude got on the phone and spoke with me about Claudinia and Gypsy. He said approximately 18 years ago, Claudinia was starving Gypsy. Claude said that after Gypsy got so thin, her feeding tube was put in. He said Gypsy was so thin and Claudinia was adamant Gypsy was only fed to be fed through her feeding tube. Claude said when Claudinia was not around, he fed Gypsy real food because he knew there was nothing wrong with her. And you didn't call anybody and report it. Not even police? That your daughter is starving your granddaughter? What? What? This is all like, they're all just like trying to deflect, like, it's not my problem. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what to do, or who to call or report it. And like, if any of this is true, it makes you look like an absolute piece of crap because you didn't even make a single couldn't even be bothered to make a single phone call at all. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. He knew that there was nothing wrong with her. I asked if Gypsy ever complained about the food causing her stomach to hurt, and he said she did not ever complain about it hurting her stomach. Claude said he thought Claudinia took Gypsy to Children's Hospital in New Orleans to have the feeding tube placed. He said Claudinia kept telling everyone there was more and more wrong medically with Gypsy, but there was actually nothing wrong with her. Really? Because he's Gypsy's doctor. They don't even know who the doctors are or who the facilities are, yet here he is naming one of them as Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Right? So when her siblings and her stepmom and, Claudinia's niece is like, we don't know who the doctors are. We don't know who the facilities are because she always kept that hidden from us and she didn't want us to know. Yet their father right here says that Children's Hospital in New Orleans gave Gypsy the feeding tube. Right? And it says, he said Claudinia kept telling everyone that there was more and more wrong medically with Gypsy. But there was actually nothing wrong with her. But yet, you guys know for a fact that there's nothing wrong with her. But you know she's taken her to all of these doctor's appointments and hospitals, and yet you guys are not reporting it. And you also know that she's being sneaky and lying about what doctors, what hospitals, what facilities, but you know she's taking her to them. How do you know that for a fact if you don't even know who the doctors or the facilities or the hospitals are? See, that's not making any sense whatsoever. It sounds a lot more like it's more like they're just projecting or they're just trying to negate their own responsibility for not caring, not reporting it, not trying to do anything to stop this kind of abuse or neglect that may have been happening or may not have been happening, instead of having to be accountable for why they did nothing, why they neglected her. Because if that child lived in your home and is your granddaughter, yes, you have absolutely every obligation, morally and legally, to report any abuse or neglect. You have that legal and moral obligation for anybody you may see, adult or child, to report it to adult or child protective services, whether it be abuse or neglect. If you even have a suspicion, you have a moral and ethical obligation to report it. But to me, it sounds kind of fishy when, he's like, oh, this was 18 years ago that she was starving Gypsy. Well, she lived for another 18 years, so clearly she wasn't starving her because she didn't pass away. See, that's the whole thing. That's like, that makes no sense. She had a feeding tube, and she was only to be fed through her feeding tube. How do you know it wasn't for medication? Right, you don't know that because you're not her doctor. So how do you know that there's nothing wrong with her? Because her medical records say a whole lot of other things that could explain a lot of this. Of course, her grandfather wasn't privy to it because he couldn't be bothered to give a shit. Right? But it's just so funny that they're like saying this whole thing with, we knew that there was nothing wrong with her. We knew that there was nothing wrong with her. We knew that she was starving her, and we were giving her food anyway. And we knew that she had all these doctors and facilities, even though we didn't know who they were. But here, we're just going to name them right here for you. Claude said Claudinia used to shave Gypsy's head to make her look sick. I thought that didn't come until after she was 14 and after they moved to Springfield, Missouri from Louisiana. So if that was 18 years before, there's a lot of pictures of Gypsy with hair, even though it's shorter. But of course, during like the late 80s and 90s, it was pretty common for girls to have short haircuts. Because I know I had some ugly ass haircuts when I was a kid. No lie. No lie. Claude said that when Claudinia and Gypsy were living with him and Laura, he was going to confront Claudinia about the way she treated Gypsy. He also was going to confront her about poisoning Laura and his cactus. This is not even funny, but oh my God. Did he literally just say, I was going to confront Claudinia about the way she treated Gypsy. I was going to confront her about poisoning my wife, Laura, and my cactus. Now, see, here's the thing. With the whole thing with Dee Dee's mom and Dee Dee's stepmom. Okay, they died so far apart from each other. Laura didn't pass away till 3 years after Dee Dee was murdered. You can verify that and look that up. I showed that over 2 years ago. So that makes no sense. If she was being poisoned, where's her medical records showing that she went to the ER and had tests done and that they were able to actually get samples to show that she had Roundup? That only came from Gypsy said. Her grandfather even says so. Even Laura even says so. That Gypsy said her mom did this. But yet, if you were suspected to have been given Roundup or any other kind of poison, your first thought would be to what? Call 911? Call poison control? The poison control center? Right? Go to the ER? There would be medical records on that. There would be discharge papers on that. There would be a police report on that. And the fact that they didn't do that tells me that that's not really happened. And if you're poisoning somebody enough, they're actually going to get sick and pass away. She didn't pass away from Roundup poisoning, and she passed away 3 years after Dee Dee was murdered. So tell me how Dee Dee was able to come back, and 1,000 days later, what was it? Her ghost? Was it Dee Dee's ghost that came back and killed Laura? Because that makes no sense. Same thing with her mom. Her mom passed away in 1998, I believe. So that was like a whole 2008, 2000. There's a whole 20 years before Laura passed away, I believe. Yeah, that's enough time for Claude to get remarried for a second time and still have a 20-year marriage with Laura. So that's just, the whole thing's just weird to me. Claude said Claudinia used to shave Gypsy. Oh, okay, I already read that part. He also was going to confront her about poisoning, allegedly, according to what Gypsy said as a kid, poisoning Laura and his cactus. He said he took a shower, and when he got out, Claudinia and Gypsy were gone, and he had not heard from them since. He did not know Claudinia was planning on leaving. It should be noted, I recorded my interview with Claude and Laura onto a digital recorder. However, there was a malfunction and only my voice captured. I copied the audio onto a CD and placed it into evidence. And you know what's funny about that? Is this is the next day. You still, after a whole 24 hours between July 22nd and July 23rd of 2015, still did not even check to see if that recorder was recording any of the, you didn't actually check and play it back to actually see. No, there's something fishy with this. There's something not right with that. Because for all we know, that could be not even a real conversation. It could just be him pretending to have a conversation. We don't know that. We don't know that. But it's funny that they're like, oh, but there was nothing actually wrong with her. Claude himself is in the Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a 6-part docuseries that are an hour-long episodes, all 6 episodes. He literally is in the Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard saying that she was born and had sleep apnea, that she would stop breathing in the middle of the night as a newborn and infant, and that this alarm would go off. So that is something wrong with her. The fact that she had strabismus, microcephaly, failure to thrive, was born premature. Those are all things that were wrong with her. But then see, it's very contradictory to say that Claudinia kept telling everyone there was more and more wrong medically with Gypsy, but there was actually nothing wrong with her. But there was, though. So that's very dishonest of him to say right here, because he is in the Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard saying she had medical issues. He was there. He's the one eyewitness to say that when she was a newborn, that sleep apnea machine would go off because she would stop breathing. She also had a hard time, allegedly, with apparently not even being able to nurse or feeding, because they diagnosed her with failure to thrive. She wasn't meeting even the 5th percentile, which means she was very below average for her height, her weight. Her head was 10 to 15% smaller than it should be in circumference. That's microcephaly. Those are all real things that are clearly not normal for a newborn infant to have. And those things are documented. He even testifies to the sleep apnea as a newborn infant, because she had to come move back home after Rod cheated on her, divorced her, left her. Then she has Gypsy and she's living at home. Her father even testifies that. But then he says here that there was actually nothing wrong with her. I don't believe that, because if Claude is telling that, he's either lying to cover his own ass and to deflect away from his neglect, or he is lying intentionally. But it doesn't make sense at all for him to say that there was nothing wrong with her when he knew from the time she was born there was something wrong with her. He literally says that the alarm would go off when she would stop breathing, that he and Dee Dee would have to go in there and wake her up and get her to breathe again for the alarm to stop. So even if that's not a big deal, that's still something. Even an innocent heart murmur is still something. Asthma, allergies, it's still something. That's still something medically. When you say actually nothing wrong with her, that is being deceptive. That is being inaccurate, according to his own testimony in the Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So make with that what you will. But lots of inconsistencies. And it's no coincidence that all of these are taken after they find out that Gypsy killed her mom. Right? So how much of this can actually be considered eyewitness testimony? Because Gypsy didn't have a trial. So they were never put under oath on the stand to have to testify to the validity and the truth of these statements. So as me reading it, I take it with a grain of salt, and that's that. But we'll continue with some more tomorrow. Until then, I gotta go get some sleep. But I love you all. Have a great night.